I'm going to point out why I think MPs such as Rupert Lowe from Reform are so important, because they're asking the right questions, and Rupert Lowe has insisted on a breakdown of just how many asylum seekers and immigrants are taking up our housing stock. So following pressure from Rupert Lowe, the government, I'm reading it here, it's on his own page, it's on I Voted Leave, it's on quite a few channels, pages. Rupert Lowe, the government has finally agreed to releasing social housing by nationality. The very statistics for 23-24. They're releasing that on Thursday, the 5th of December. The Telegraph tells us that foreign criminals who avoided deportation, so they're here claiming asylum, I would imagine, more than 10,000 offences in a year were committed. That's what the official figures from the ONS show. The Telegraph said that foreign criminals who avoided deportation committed more than 10,000 offences, and a quarter of those offenders went on to re-offend in the UK after being released from jail. Why are we keeping them in the country? If you work out the proportion of foreigners in our jails, then how many are released back into the community and are still here, there isn't a housing crisis, there's an immigration crisis, because they all have to live somewhere. Now, the reason that reform are becoming more and more important, that are more and more popular, is because a handful of MPs, 5 MPs, are asking the right questions. What are the others actually doing? There's 650 of them in Westminster that cost us a lot of money. There's been another one today. He's called Alex JJ Norris. He's a Labour MP, you know, Labour's for the working man. He voted to stop the winter fuel allowance for pensioners. And he was being grilled by Susanna on Breakfast TV, what's she called, Susanna Reid. Why cut the winter fuel allowance when his winter fuel bill is getting paid? I'm going to play the audio from this because I think the way he answers, you know, the way he talks to Susanna, and these people are in charge of us. These people are supposed to be looking after us. Tell me what you think. This is his response. This is Susanna Reid from Breakfast TV. What is it? I think she's on, is it ITV?
Million pensioners losing out. Do you still claim support for your energy bills?
My employer meets the costs of working and living away from home.
But as an MP, you earn, am I right, £91,000 plus your ministerial salary of around 30,000.
Yes,
Wouldn't the better difficult decision be to take away heating allowance from MPs who can afford to pay it than from pensioners on £12,000, £13,000 a year?
Well, I think that the way in which employment's treated should be consistent irrespective of the job that you do. And as I say, it would be routine, as it would be for yourself, as it would be for me, for those costs to be met.
Shouldn't public money be spent on those who can least afford it rather than those who can most afford it?
Well, indeed.
Do you not have any qualms when you say it was a difficult decision to take up to £300 away from pensioners on low incomes when you are a highly paid MP and minister who still claims public money for your energy bills?
I think, I'm not a big fan of Susanna Reid, but I think she nailed it there all right. This is supposed to be a Labour government. They got in because people thought they were going to look after them. And sadly, they're not. They're not going to be any better than the Tories, because they're not Tories and Labour anyway. They're just a melting pot of globalist thinking individuals. And whichever way you look at it, after this last budget, you think about it, this budget has crippled small businesses, medium-sized businesses and big business. Big business are now complaining. They're getting millions of pounds more tax to pay. Now, this isn't an accident. No matter how numb she is, the Chancellor, she's not that numb. They know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. And it's my belief, as a keen and strong Brexiteer that's been at it since 2015, that this was done to cripple industry on purpose, to make it easier to drag us back into the EU. The EU, where von der Leyen sits as president with her husband as a doctor, who I've just said in a previous video, signed a £71 billion contract for a company owned by his company, or his company owns that company. Do you see where I'm going with this? These people aren't transparent. These people are not to be trusted. They are politicians. He didn't even answer anything she said to him. All he did was deflect it back onto him. And there's quite a lot of people work for companies that don't pay their electricity bills. Why should we pay for him to have an electricity bill or energy bill paid by us because he's got a second home? A lot of these ministers, politicians, people within the government who have second homes who get to fund them through their expenses actually make money on the premises because they're buying a second home in somewhere usually where it goes up pretty fast. London. We're not being treated right at all. You've got to forget that Labour's for the working man, for your own good. You've got to remember that there's 5 MPs at the moment that sing anything like the song we want them to, and they happen to belong to Reform. I see Reform as a stepping stone to get more MPs in the House of Commons that will change to a better system of voting, proportional representation. You see, the main parties don't like proportional representation because you can't get no done. You can't get any legislation passed. After the strokes they've pulled this last 3 years, through lockdown, forced mandates for medication, sacking people because they didn't take it in an industry, care homes that's already short-staffed, doing things like that, introducing this anti-methane thing. We don't want them to be able to make legislation easily, do we? Don't we want to have a hand in how we see it, whether we want this to happen? Arla milk is stacking up on the shelves. I think it's a Waitrose in Wimbledon, and the Arla milk is not moving off the shelves. It's the same across the country. Low pack butter piling up. People don't want it because we want to say what goes on. This is stuff we're putting in here. It's important. You decide what you put on here and on here. So it's important that we decide what goes in here. And when you're doing something like interfering with milk in supermarkets, which is a staple of our diet, then you're taking the choice away. So it's very important to be proactive in what's happening with politics and the government and food, the food chain, DEFRA. I mean, DEFRA's another Quango, just like the Electoral Commission. There are all these Quangos that Tony Blair set up. So we keep abreast of things, we keep an eye out for things, and we make sure that the next election... There's an old adage that if voting did any good, they'd have took it off us years ago. I do agree with that to a point, but bearing in mind the civil service run the country, in any country, there's the backroom boys. We call them a civil service. Other countries give them a different name. But they're basically the people that put everything into action. So this is the way to look at your government. The government and the parliament, the politicians that you see, they're the front men. They're the ones that you see. They're the ones that's got to take the hit for bad decision making, for when things fail. They're the ones you can say, right, stand down, Mr. So-and-so, so-and-so. They take the hit. And they also get a lot of reward for the pressure that they're under. And a lot of people who are working for 20 grand a year won't see earning 91,000 a year plus expenses as pressure at all. They just see it as a golden opportunity to live a better life, which it is. Ring-fence pension, cheap food, cheap travel, second homes run, bills paid. We know the score. So what you've got to look at is moving forward, we need to get people into that parliament that would support proportional representation, because these people, the front men that we can vote in, don't do us any favours. The only way that we can get more control is to push people forward. It happens to be Reform at the moment that would support proportional representation, and any individuals that stand under their own flag. You know, people often say to me, why don't you be an MP? Because I'd have to keep my gob shut. Can you imagine if I stood as an MP, they brought all my tweets out? I want to be able to speak freely. It's more important you get information than me sat in some office sorting out the moving of a bus stop or whatever else is going on. But we've got some really good characters at the moment. Lee Anderson is proving his mettle. He's a working class lad. Worked down a mine, knows how much it is to feed a family, all the rest of it. So he brings that to the table. You've got Rupert Lowe, who's a gentleman farmer. I think he owns a football club. Is well respected. He is respectable. and he's decided to give his easy life up and pitch in for us. And apparently, from what I see, his constituents are more than pleased with him, as are Nigel Farage's constituents. They're happy. They're happy to have someone who knows Donald Trump. Who wouldn't be? With what we've had from the choices we've had, that the Tories and the Labour Party have given us. And that bloody comedian Ed Davey, who thinks dancing in a Christmas jumper. Some of them kids look terrified. It's like your crazy Uncle Knobhead coming, isn't it? Oh, Uncle Ed's here with Christmas jumper on. It don't make you nice because you've got a Christmas jumper on. You still went from Scotland to Cornwall in a private jet so you could see your kids while you're telling us to not eat meat and stay indoors. Don't fly, don't cruise, don't do everything. Don't live your life, but we'll be living ours. No, sod that. We're pushing back, mate. That's how we're doing it. Anyway, just thought I'd bring you up to date with a few things there. No doubt the telly's still full of that bloody chef, Greg Wallace, whatever he's called, cursed his knickers in a twist because something lewd was said. Nobody cares. We're not bothered. Anyway, a few of these lefty liberals that left America, it's not going down so well for them, is it? They've left and nobody cares. Nobody's bothered. I'm not bothered whether Bette Midler has. Bette Midler's not having a shower for 2 weeks to save the planet. Minging. That is not going to make any difference. What would make a difference? Getting plastic out the seas. Yeah, that would make a hell of a difference, that would. And stopping litter. Cutting down on packaging. Stopping supermarkets from rejecting farmers' stock because the cauliflower is too big to sit on the shelf because they're like 6 in a row. Stopping broccoli being rejected because it's not gone in a perfect floret shape. No, stopping all that rigid stupidity. That would help the planet. Not all this, oh, Bette Midler's not had a shower for a fortnight. We don't care, you're just a minger.